Welcome to Creating Calm Parenting with Mind, Body, and Spirit. I'm Corinne Cayce, your co-host. I'm an integral leadership coach, a mother of two, and a lifelong student of the Edgar Cayce readings. And I'm here with my friend and co-host, Arlene. Good morning, Arlene.
Good morning, Corinne. Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Arlene Diamco. I'm an integrative physician, a pediatrician, and a cranial osteopath, and a mom of four. And today we are going to talk about the power of thought, because this is a great topic, always a great reminder of the power of our minds, the power of our thinking, and how to navigate that, how to use that to live more consciously. So before we get started, Corinne is going to start us off with the opening meditation.
Thank you, Arlene. This is a wonderful topic, and I feel like it's one of the top 4 primary ideas in the Edgar Cayce readings, and so it's great to revisit it in all sort of different approaches to how to work with this. So I can't wait to have this conversation. Before we do, let's take just a moment, as we always do, to bring our attention to our hearts and our minds and our bodies. If you're able to close your eyes, please do, or you can bring a soft gaze toward the ground in front of you, or just let your attention turn inward for a moment and begin by bringing your attention down to your feet, to the soles of your feet, to your toes, to your ankles. Let your awareness travel up through your shins, your knees, your thighs, your hips, your low belly, your low back. Find your spine. Let your attention come to the straightness of your spine, rising all the way up through your back and your shoulders to meet the base of your skull. Come back and find your beating heart, your chest, your shoulders. Let your awareness scan down through your arms, your elbows, your forearms, your wrists, your hands, your fingers. Back up to your throat and your neck, the back of your head, the top of your head. Let your awareness cascade down your face, relaxing all the small muscles around your eyes and mouth, your jaw and your ears. Here's your body. Let's find our breath. To take 3 deep breaths together. All right, thank you so much. So we'll begin with an excerpt from the Edgar Cayce readings, as we always do, to kind of contextualize our conversation today. And the excerpt that we've pulled comes from reading 3744-4. And it says, "What one thinks continually, they become. What one cherishes in their heart and mind, they make a part of the pulsation of their heart through their own blood cells and builds into our physical body." All right, so let's talk about this in this beautiful way that the Edgar Cayce readings always do. We're immediately sort of bringing body, mind, and spirit together into one and really highlighting the power of our minds and what we choose to think about over what it feels like to be in our physical body. That's what I'm sort of getting right off the bat. What are you seeing in this excerpt, Arlene?
Well, from an osteopathic perspective, when I
Please.
hear that pulsation of the heart to the blood cells, I think about the electromagnetic field of the heart and how our thoughts can work with that. And so when the heart and the mind are aligned, the electromagnetic field of the heart is just beaming. It's a huge field, especially when filled with love. So when our thoughts are aligned with that love, aligned with spirit, then the heart is this magnificent broadcaster sending messages throughout the whole body. So as the heart pumps blood, it's really more spiraling the blood. So it's taking it in and then shifting the direction, and then it spirals it. And so you have this heart field, electromagnetic field, but then you also have this electricity and another electromagnetic field as the blood travels through the arteries it's spiraling. So the heart's sending messages through an electromagnetic field, through light, even through sound, and all of those messages are going through the body and traveling through the arteries, reaching every single cell in the body, so that every cell in the body gets this message from the heart. So
Mm,
that's why it's actually really important for us to have our thoughts aligned with our heart, aligned with spirit. So when this message is sent, one, it creates this big magnetic electromagnetic field of the heart, but
mhm,
then we're sending this message throughout our bodies. And so um, when it's feeling free, not under tension and stress, then that message is just feels so expansive in us. So when we're
mm,
feeling joyful, peaceful, happy, you have this lightness to your being. And
mm,
it's because of this expansion of the heart field, but that message is literally traveling physically through the arteries to reach every single cell. And so that's
mm,
part of the power of our thoughts, that we can work with our whole being, body, mind, spirit, and transmit this heart message so that every cell receives a message of love if
mm,
we decide to use our thoughts in a loving way. So that's when
mhm.
it's really powerful.
Mhm. Yeah. So to kind of so there's this first thing that you're naming for us, which is really great, which is like a willingness to acknowledge we really have power over our thoughts. And I think that's so key in the readings too. I think a lot of times we feel like we're kind of a victim, we're a passenger on the train of all of our thoughts that are happening. There's these things we have to do, there's these things that have happened to us, and our minds can just kind of run. They're so powerful and they're working hard to help us navigate our way through our lives. And, they're and then if so the a first step of being like, okay, I feel like I am ready. I want to kind of master my mind in terms of within the context of bringing it into alignment with our hearts, with our
Mhm,
spirits, with our souls, with our bodies. Like I'm ready for that deep alignment to happen. And that's kind of the first step, I think, in working with the power of our thoughts, of kind of
mhm,
coming into a confident place of this is
mhm.
something that I want to work on, and I'm ready to work on it, and I'm ready for the tools to work on it.
Yeah.
So yes. So what Arlene and I thought we would do is really start to bring some of those tools to you all. If you're listening to this, you've made that commitment, you're ready to work with it. You can kind of feel in your being somewhere that this is something that has the possibility of transforming the way that you experience your life and how others experience you. And what is the step-by-step process? Once you're ready to do that, let's embark on how to do that. And then we also want to take some time to walk you through some examples of how this would play out in your life and give you sort of some practices that you can take out into your day to day, because it is wonderful to think about these things. And it's another thing we know to bring it into our day to day when there's so much that's out of our control, so many things that are coming at us as we move through our daily lives, especially as parents and as family members, and all our work and all the different spheres of our lives. How do we work with this? So here's our step by step process. I'm going to walk us through it quickly right out of the gate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then Arlene and I are going to sort of take it step by step and add these examples. So, step number one is recognizing a pattern or a habitual a thought loop that's happening. So recognizing, and this, that we have so much that's available to us in the world right now around mindfulness and bringing mindfulness awareness, developing this idea of a watcher, someone who's observing, not being fully on the roller coaster of our thoughts, but being able to notice, oh, I can see this happening right now. I notice this pattern of anxiety, of fear, of anger, of overwhelm, of judgment, or whatever it is. Noticing a thought pattern, step one, recognize it. Step two, and this is often very hard, especially when the mind is used to being in control. Step two, create space. That means don't recognize it and immediately push it away. Don't recognize it and immediately try to fix it. Don't recognize and engage in any way. There's just creating of space. And there's lots of ways that we can create space that we'll get into, but that's step 2 of giving room, giving space to this. Okay, I see that. Often a great first step of creating space is breathe, take a deep breath. Yeah. Step 3, connect to your ideal and your intention. Connect means call it into your mind and into your heart, remembering this is what I know to be true about me. This is the direction in which I am moving in my life, regardless of what is happening to me. How to set an ideal, how to work with ideals. We've talked about that a bunch of times on this podcast. There's also a lot of material on A.R.E.'s website about how to do that, and in the Edgar Cayce readings themselves in our member section. But ideal more generally, not reading specific, is just knowing your intention. What do I know to be true about me? Remembering who you are. Yeah. So step 4, ask for help and surrender. So that can look a lot of different ways that we'll get into, but there's this step before action is taken where you're surrendering, where you're asking for help, you're opening. There's a relaxing and a letting go that happens there. And then the 5th and final step that we have is add movement. This can be actual physical movement or action that we're taking in some way. So those are the 5 steps. These steps Arlene and I have created together out of our backgrounds and experiences and our work with the Edgar Cayce readings, recognizing a pattern, creating space, connecting to your ideal and intention, asking for help and surrendering, and then adding movement. So this is a process for allowing us to really get into a place of power with being able to choose the kinds of thoughts and attitudes that we want to be holding as we move through our life.
And we have some great examples to help us make these steps very practical. So the first one has to do with relationships. So recognizing some sort of whatever the stuckness, whatever the difficulty is. And it could be this thought loop of, I wish this person would be this way, would do this thing. So that's the first step. See your thoughts for what they are. Like, what are you thinking? What is this? What do you keep worrying about? Or does it just keep looping and looping? You can't seem to like move from it. So it's recognizing that there is a stuckness. This helps you to own your thoughts when you can see how your thoughts are moving or not moving.
Right.
And then
we can take a really practical example of this. You know, for me, if I look at my marriage, right? Very easy to find all of the times my mind is going to, oh my gosh, I wish you would just do this one little thing differently. Like we're in the kitchen, you know, would he just, you know, empty the drying rack of the dishes once in there? He would just do that. My breakfast routine would flow so much easier and we'd be able to get the ball rolling by every day, you know, da, 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 da. So there's recognizing, oh, there's me looking at him. If he would just do this differently, my life would be so much easier, right? Recognizing that pattern, stopping right there and looking at myself and all the many ways he can do the exact same thing for me. Looking at me and thinking, oh my gosh, if Corinne would just do this one thing differently, our life would flow so much easier, and really allowing myself to move into a place of vulnerability and humility, openness, and learning with that of like, wow, how do I respond when he is making that, if you would just do this differently, request of me? And how can I transform the attitude and the way that I'm relating to it as in direct service of working with the frustration and difficulty that I feel for when I feel that exact same thing for him, right? This is a practice that we can use every day to experiment with how can we transform the stuck places in our relationship. Yeah. Does
yeah.
that make sense, Arlene,
Oh,
what I'm saying there?
absolutely. And it really
Yeah.
is a practice. And I feel like this is something that everyone can relate to. And when we are able to just recognize that pattern, then we can also step back and create space. So this again can look like breathing. If you're not breathing, it can look like adding more perspective, so stepping back and adding to the perspective, because when we have these thoughts of like, "Oh, I wish this person would just do this, would just be like this,"
Mhm.
if we expand the picture, then I start to think of things like, "What what am I maybe taking advantage of, or what am I, um, forgetting to be grateful about? So,
Mhm.
what can I be grateful about?" You get a bigger picture. It's like, especially when you have someone in your life that you have this routine, you have things on a daily basis, and within a family, I mean, you always have constant things going on, and little daily things to navigate. So the small things that people do, and these ways that they show that they're loving can sometimes be forgotten. So it's like stepping back and taking a perspective of like, "Oh, are there things that I can be grateful for?" So
Mhm.
that's to me part of creating space, because
Mhm.
when it's really stuck, it's like you're constrained and you're holding this one thought in a box. But if you just give it
Mhm.
some breathing room and expand the perspective, it's like, "Well, what else is there? Oh, there's
Yeah.
things to be thankful for."
Yeah, and so that question of so space is definitely slowing down a lot. It's slowing down. So you can feel yourself want to say something, do something, try and solve for this, that whatever your habitual pattern is, your reaction there, and this is can often be a really challenging thing to do of just, whoa, slow down, create
Mhm,
space, bring space into it. There's a power. What Arlene was saying around, what else is happening here, like
mhm,
expanding in that way. There's a powerful and in there, like using that language. This is true and this is true also. And this is just like a way of working with your mind and heart
right,
to help create the possibility of responding in a new way, of making a choice that feels true, really true to who you are and how you want to be in the world. And that is the next step, right? Connecting to that ideal or intention. So, and that is only, I think, possible with a bit of slowing down time in there, because usually if there's something stuck that's going on, we're out of alignment with what we know to be true about who we are. So we need to be able to make that shift back. Now, this is a rich and powerful, there's a lot of different ways that we don't want to get too into what does ideal mean here, right, Arlene? Because
mhm,
that's a lot. But so how would
right.
you describe,
Well,
connecting to that ideal or intention? Yeah.
in a simple way, it's imagining how you would like things to feel.
Hmm.
And I'll do that with various relationships in my life. If there's any ripples, I imagine, how would I like it to feel? So before I get to, well, what am I going to do about it?
Hmm.
First, stop, recognize it, give it space, breathe, imagine how I would like it to feel. So that to me is a type of a way of connecting with an ideal, with an
Hmm.
intention, and it gives
Hmm.
it purpose too, because unless I know that feeling, it's like I won't have a direction of like what next step to take. It's just it
Hmm.
feels like it's just you're just responding from this stress response. So it can feel a little bit like fireworks or haphazard, and that's
Hmm.
that chaos feeling, and not
Hmm.
and being hesitant of and knowing what step to take. But yeah, just sit with the feeling, and
Right.
sometimes, it's hard to feel it because it's like, I don't even know what that feels like. So then I'll tell people, I'm like, "Well, just ask the question, like, how would it feel if this relationship felt free and easy, and loving, and everything that you hope for it to be?" Just ask,
Hmm.
"How would it feel?" Because then what that does, it starts to prime the subconscious mind and thoughts to start working for you.
Hmm.
And that helps your navigation. So you just
Hmm.
point it in the direction, even if you don't know what it feels like yet, like, you don't know
Hmm.
what that feels viscerally in your body, just ask,
Hmm.
"How would it feel?"
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, wonderful. And and there's a lot of work that is out there in the world now around ideal setting in terms of discovering your values and knowing like what your priorities are, and just sort of any sort of language that you've worked with before, if you're not as familiar with with the readings, to kind of remind yourself of what do I know to be true about me here? What do I know? What do I use to help me navigate making hard decisions when I am at my best, and inviting just little seeds and sprinkles of this. It doesn't have to be a 180 shift that happens from feeling completely overwhelmed to being completely patient or something like that, but it's just little sprinkles or seeds of like, how do I want this to feel? What would this look like if it could look in a way that felt really good to me, and staying in the feeling there and not the logic kind of rational, how do I problem solve just at this time? That rational problem solving, taking action is absolutely necessary, but we're just
Mhm.
creating a little space here to be more in the heart space. So once we do that, step 4, again, surrendering or asking for help. And that is, then that we get quickly into spirit, I would say. Wouldn't you, Arlene? Like that's where we're
Oh,
sort of really opening to spirit.
absolutely, and I was just talking to a friend earlier this morning, and he said that he had a challenging situation with a patient, and he said that he just felt like this presence of angels around him, and it actually went very smoothly. And so I'll sometimes give people an exercise that I call this double embrace, where so you ask for help and you surrender. So you kind of let yourself kind of relax into this nest of love, but you embrace yourself. So you just imagine like hugging yourself, or you can hug yourself too because you're supporting yourself, and then asking for more help on top of that. So you're helping yourself, but you're asking for divine guidance or help from the angels, whatever you want it to look like. But I'll imagine these, if I feel like I really need that kind of hugging in, feeling overwhelmed or overstimulated, then I'll imagine angel wings like wrapping around me. So I'll be hugging myself, and I'll imagine these angel wings like hugging me too. And that will give me this nice cocoon feeling to rest in and to sort things out before going into the next step, which is to add movement. So when I'm really busy, or thinking about this relationship example, it's like, okay, asking for help, asking for divine guidance, asking the angels for help, and feeling embraced by that. And then considering adding movement. What step can you take to help move this relationship in a feel good direction? So if it's that stuck pattern, I wish this person was this way, and then now you've connected with the ideal of like, what do you how would you like that to feel? And now take a step, maybe in terms of like gratitude or something like that. It's like, what step could I take to show thanks for this person? Because that will shift it into this loving direction and expand that focus of where your thoughts and your movement go. So by taking a step in that direction, you're giving your thoughts momentum and energy, and now opening it up into the physical reality. And so that's how we can use our thoughts to shape our experience.
Mhm. And another practice that you can bring into this step is and this comes straight, from the readings, which is if some of what you're feeling is related to fear, anxiety, worry, being overwhelmed, and you can feel that thought pattern running, then one way of adding movement to that, and also which begins really with asking for help and surrendering, in my experience of working with it, is you notice that thought pattern in the space,
Mhm,
you've reconnected, and then out of that emerges uh, a blessing or an affirmation or a prayer
mhm,
of where you're just um, asking, like sending forward, the action is like sending forward that, may this be of benefit to all, or may we feel, may they be surrounded in light and be safe and well, like that there's movement that is
Mm.
transforming the anxiety and worry into a prayer or a blessing toward the situation, toward the person that it may be related to. And that practice of switching, I notice I'm worrying, I notice I'm fixating, I'm wanting to control, into this kind of surrender with action component of here's a blessing, here's a prayer, and using that as it can be like like there's often an object of meditation, like something that you're working with, then it's like an object of mindful
Mhm.
transformation of thought patterns of I can feel myself doing this. Instead of these words internally, I'm using this prayer, this blessing to
Mhm.
be a guidepost for me to help me not get lost in other thought patterns that are so natural for me to fixate on, that I'm used to, and bringing that practice again and again into your day, in your day to day.
Mhm. I love that. I can feel it shifting. It's like taking this thought worry loop, but giving it some tender care and attention, and then feeling it shift into this thought prayer of hope and love, and moving it into that direction by taking this 5-step process. That's really beautiful.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Well, I hope that this has been helpful for everyone to kind of go through a step-by-step process of recognizing the power of our thinking minds, the power of our thoughts to transform our experience, and then bring some real life practices and examples into that process. It's always so helpful and grounding for me to revisit it. And so thank you so much, Arlene, for going deep with me into this today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Corinne. I could feel it as we're talking about it. I could feel it shifting, and I
Yeah.
feel like it's a beautiful place to end this episode of this prayer of hope and love, and moving
Mhm.
forward in the day with that kind of thought process.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
All right. Well, I'll look forward to our next conversation. And thank you, everyone, for joining us.
thanks to everyone. We'll see you next time.